Hi everybody, my name is Heather Lindsay and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Last week I talked about letting God write your love story. So this week I am back with a better camera. It's been taking me about 3 or 4 days to get this thing uploaded. So thank you for your patience. My goal is to upload at least one video a week with my crazy schedule. So nonetheless, I had some questions after I posted about letting God write your love story. What should deal breakers be? Now, don't get me wrong, this is not a formula. This is not some thing I'm trying to say this is this new law or whatever the case is. We have to be led by the Holy Spirit. And everything that we do, we have to be led by the Lord. The Lord told me that my now husband would be my husband, but for me, I needed to see some proof to see if that was true, to see if what I heard lined up with what's going on in the Bible. So what are my deal breakers? The first and foremost one is if you were unequally yoked, or if you don't have a relationship with Jesus. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, how can you properly love me? He's the author of love. What is your foundation of love? Where does it come from? If your foundation of love is yourself, then that means that the only restraint you have is yourself. So how can you properly love me? I need you to have some type of standard. So if you don't have some type of standard, which is Christ, then how can you properly love me? He's the author and the creator of love. So for me, I needed my one day husband, to love the Lord our God with all of his heart, soul, mind, and strength. It was very important to me, and it wasn't just this, I love Jesus, I go to church thing. Like, I need to see you actively pursuing Christ, actively living for him. It can't just be this thing where you're like, oh, I love Jesus, but I still try to have sex with you. Oh, I love Jesus, but I still cuss you out. Oh, I love, I need to see some fruit on that tree. So first and foremost, deal breaker number one, if he does not love the Lord, he cannot properly love you. I believe that sometimes as women, we try to change men. So we think that, if we, get him in and draw him in, and maybe at some point down the line he'll give his heart to Jesus, or maybe God is using you to bring him to Christ. Baby girl, the Bible's clear. It says don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I know you might love him. I know you wish you could be with him, but it might be your loneliness or your emotions talking, saying, I'm tired of being single. I'm comfortable around him. I'm used to being around him. I just want to be with him. I love him. But the thing is this, what happens if you try to change that man? You're going to get married to that man. And what's going to happen is that man is going to begin to resent and hate the God that you serve. He's going to hate that you're going to church. He's going to be jealous of the time you spend there. He's going to tell you not to give. And as the leader, as the man in the household, he'll have that right. So, first and foremost, I have to love Jesus. Number two, a deal breaker for me when I was single was I could not marry no wimpy man. I couldn't. What do we have in common? I need you to be able to properly lead me. If you cannot properly lead me in this relationship, Ephesians 5 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your husband as unto the Lord. And if I'm leading this relationship and I'm running you, then I know you can't properly lead me. So I challenged my now husband Cornelius to see if he could properly lead me many times, just to see if he could. Now I was, we just started courting. I didn't know a whole lot, but I wanted to see if he'd let me run all over him, because let me tell you, I used to run all over guys. I had no respect for men. The reason I didn't is because a lot of men say they're going to do something, they didn't do it. So if you say that you love God and you're not going to try to have sex with me, you're not going to kiss me or whatever the case is, but you still do it and you have no boundaries and no setup, what's going to happen when we get married? What restraints are you going to have? How can you properly lead me if you've practiced that while we're courting? So for me, I struggled greatly with that. I lose respect for a man in a second. So for me, I needed that man to be a leader. I needed him to properly lead me. And I remember the first time we went on our first date, we went out to eat, and then he had to just run in and grab something at Walgreens or some drugstore. So I walk in and I see this huge sale from, drugstore makeup. Like the makeup was on sale. I was like, oh, cool, makeup. And I'm a shopper. I love bargains. I love deals. So I went over there. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go look at the makeup. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, we came in here because I needed to go grab something. And now all of a sudden you're making an emotional decision and you're going to go buy some makeup. And I said, hold up. You don't even know me. Like, this is our first date. How you going to tell me what I'm going to buy, what I'm not going to buy? But I didn't buy nothing that day, because deep down I like that discipline. I like that he led me. I like that he called me out and said, you're being emotional right now. You need to check your emotions. You need to check your feelings. So that was very, very, very important to me. Number 3, I needed a man that was kind and that was loving and gentle. Now, I guess the opposite of that is somebody that's mean and harsh or whatever the case is. But I had this huge list of 25 things of what I wanted in a husband, what I wanted in a man. And what I learned is, even with, the next topic I'm about to talk about, is that sometimes your one day spouse is not going to have your whole 25 things on your list. And before you go throwing your list around, you better make sure you're all those things on your list before you try to force that on somebody else. Talking about you need to be out of debt, but you got $100,000 in student loans. You know what I'm talking about. So fast forward, but for me, when I first met my husband, the Lord told me to love him hard, and show him what unconditional love was, because I needed to teach him how to truly love. I mean, he was a good guy, but honestly, he had some issues. He was very straight, very hard, very harsh type of personality. So was he kind and loving and gentle? No, not for real. I mean, he was getting there. He had potential. But for me, he was a leader. I mean, he was pushing me closer to the Lord, and I noticed that God was using me to eliminate that weakness and to show him himself and and kind of mirror him. So for me, it was nice because I watched the Lord slowly change him. So what I'm saying is, remember, that man is not going to be all 25 things on your list. He's going to grow to develop to be all those things on your list. So don't give him a hard time if he's not totally perfect. Another thing is, I liked a guy that that wanted to not work a 9 to 5. I know that might sound crazy, but I knew I was called into ministry. I know you have to be flexible. You're traveling, you're preaching, all those different things. So I knew that I couldn't marry somebody that said, I want a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I just want to be, an accountant, or I just want to sit in a desk or a cubicle for the rest of my life. I knew that I was going to be traveling and moving. And when you're in that courtship process, you need to have that conversation. If somebody wants to be in a cubicle for the rest of their life and the other person wants to do missions in, Kenya or another country, then you have to ask yourself, am I going to be okay with that? If not, that's a deal breaker for me. That's a deal breaker for me if we're not on the same page and our purposes are not lining up. And, and if the other person, if the guy doesn't know his purpose or his vision or what God has called him to do, then why does he need you? You're a helpmeet, sis. The Bible calls you a helpmeet. How can you help that man if he doesn't know what he's been called to do and what his purpose is, what his direction is? Then how can you help him with an assignment and he's unaware of the assignment? He's going to end up abusing the relationship because he doesn't understand you or the purpose for you. So I needed a man that had a vision and had some type of direction. So when I met my now husband, and he told me what the Lord called him to do right away, and I knew what God called me to do, and it was like, perfect. We met, we're together, let's do this thing. Some other things you might think that this is like, superficial or whatever the case is, but I wanted to be attracted to my one day husband. And I know some people are like, no, it's not just about that. And you're right, it's not just about that. Don't get me wrong. But I wanted to look at my husband and be like, that's a fine man. You know what I mean? Like, beauty starts on the inside. And that's, if you remember anything, remember that. It starts on the inside. But externally, I wanted to be physically attracted to my one day spouse. It was important to me. So, I mean, am I attracted to my husband? Absolutely, of course. I think he's the finest thing ever. But not only that, he keeps himself together. I asked the Lord for a man that cut his hair. And is that a deal breaker? And I can adjust, I can move, but it's so cool how God will actually give you your desires of your heart. I wanted him to be clean cut. I wanted him to be able to wear suits, and he wears suits all the time when he preaches. Again, his clothes weren't always, his suit game was always on point. But when we got together, his clothing game, I had to help him out a little bit in that area. Again, some things we worked through together and we developed together. Another thing that was important to me was a man that exercised. And for you, you might say, well, that's not a deal breaker. It doesn't have to be. It wasn't a deal breaker for me. Those first few things were deal breakers, but these other things were adjustable, but they were definitely, great points. The fact that my husband does have those things. Other deal breakers that are important: if that man does drugs or alcohol, if he beats you up, different things like that, you have to ask yourself, okay, if he's like this now, a ring on my finger ain't gonna change this man and how he is. If he does illegal things, if he tries to cut corners, if he tries to write bad checks and all that other stuff, if he's constantly bouncing your accounts and all that other stuff, what do you think is going to happen when you guys get together? People often ask me, well, does that man have to have a job? Is it a deal breaker? My now husband had a job for 4 years when we got together, but I don't care about no job. I care about your purpose. And if I can believe in your purpose and I believe in your vision, then I believe what God called you to do. Because what happened is 3 months after we got married, the Lord told my husband to leave his job and to go into ministry full time, where he just kind of took a year away, where he studied the Bible and spent time with God like crazy. So, I had to believe in him to know that, you know what, he ain't crazy. This is what he's supposed to be doing. He's not lazy. He's really just spending crazy time with God. And it birthed our ministry and our church and all that other stuff afterward. But I believed in my husband. I believed in the God in him, and I believed that he was led by the Lord. A deal breaker for me was a man that kissed me prior to our wedding day. I know that might sound crazy, but it's what I asked God for in 2004. I wanted a man that would not kiss me until our wedding day. So in the back of my mind, I knew when I kissed a guy, after I had told him I didn't want to kiss, I knew that I ain't gonna marry this guy. I remember telling myself that after I had kissed a guy when I was single. And I was like, I ain't gonna marry him. He ain't it. And when I met my now husband, he actually told me, I'm not going to kiss you until our wedding day. And I didn't even tell him about my desire to want that. Because for me, I was like, do guys like that even exist? But I'm here to tell you they do. And godly men are looking for godly women. So the thing is this. I want to encourage you to be content wherever you are, whatever season that you're in. And if you're in a bad relationship that you believe, you want to work things out, you're trying to press through, but it's just you got this check in your spirit. You just don't, something just ain't right. You can't just figure it out. But I'm telling you this, man, God is warning you. He's telling you, get out of that relationship. I want all of you. I'm jealous for you. I want all of your attention. I want you. And when you cut off all that baggage and all those people from your past that don't truly love you, that you think love you, but don't really love you, then it leaves God space and room to bring in who he really wants to be in your life. Marriage is ministry. It's more than a pair of thighs in your bed. Marriage is ministry. And if you're not ready to minister to your husband by dying to yourself, dying to the way you are, your thoughts, your attitudes, that nagging mouth of yours, and all those other things, then you'll understand that, you just like the title of being a wife, but you don't like the responsibility that comes with that title. And if you don't truly submit yourself to Christ and let go of what you know, then when you get into that title, you might abuse that role, or you might not totally understand it. So whatever your deal breakers are, don't settle. Don't settle. Have your main deal breakers, and then, share with Christ or God, a few things that you like. But he's got to be saved. If that man is not saved, if he's of another religion, Muslim, whatever the case is, you have to let him go. It's not God's will that you're with that person. It's just not. So I just want to encourage you. I know things can get hard. It might feel like we want to be with a guy because, we love him, or because we want, we're tired of being lonely, or we're tired of this game. But I just want to encourage you that life is so much greater than marriage. It is. I'm not just saying that because I'm married, but now that I am married, I have a better understanding of why do we rush? And not only that, why do we get into relationships with people we should have never been with and never should have even made it past hello? And then we blame God for our divorce 3 or 4 years later down the road, and God's like, I never told you to be with that person in the first place. So now that you're with him, now there's all these other attacks that come with it. So that's it for now. I'm gonna try to record again next week. I love you guys, and have a great night. Also, check out my blog, heatherllindsey.com. I talk a ton about how I knew my husband was the one and all that good stuff. My husband's actually also going to record one on my video YouTube channel soon, probably tonight. All right, talk to you guys later. Mwah.